Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's assembly. As you can see from the slide, there's a little question here to get you going. So the question is, why is Miss Shepherd, me, if you didn't know I was Miss Shepherd, better than a flea? Now, we can look at our little friend, the flea, and what we know about fleas, our instant judgment about fleas, we go, oh, they're a bit little, they're a bit annoying. And then you go, oh, I've met Miss Shepherd. She's really little, and she can probably sometimes be a bit annoying as well. But it's my job in this assembly today to explain to you why I think I am better than a flea. But to begin with, I need to tell you a little bit about our friends, the fleas. Now, if I had the same jumping ability as a flea, if I could jump as well as a flea does, I would be able to jump the following things. I would be able to jump as high as Big Ben. That's how high I'd be able to jump if I could jump as well as a flea. I would be able to jump the length of Wembley if I could jump as well as a flea. I can't do either of those things. So to start with, you're thinking, oh, the flea could be winning here. The flea could be better than Miss Shepherd. But I want to show you a little video, and I want you to then think about what I might be saying later in this assembly that proves to you I'm better than a flea. Have a little watch.
Training fleas requires a glass jar with a lid. The fleas are placed inside the jar and the lid is then sealed. They are left undisturbed for 3 days. Then, when the jar is opened, the fleas will not jump out. In fact, the fleas will never jump higher than the level set by the lid. Their behaviour is now set for the rest of their lives. And when these fleas reproduce, their offspring will automatically follow their example.
Now, the first time I watched that, I'll have to be honest, I had to watch it again because I sort of didn't understand. I was there going, so you are telling me that this flea has amazing jumping abilities, those things I've just shown you, as high as Big Ben, the length of Wembley Stadium. If I had those skills, they're incredible at jumping. But if I put them in a jar, and if I put a lid on that jar and I leave them for just 3 days, they will never, ever, ever be able to jump higher than that jar, ever. They've been trapped. Someone has put a lid on them and they will never really be able to fulfill their potential. No matter how hard they try, once that lid's been put on for 3 days, it's done. Yeah, it's set. And I think that's really sad. And hopefully the story I'm now going to tell you will encourage you to think a bit more perhaps like I did, rather than be trapped like those poor fleas can be. So I want to tell you a little bit about my life before I was a teacher. And this is where the story for today begins. This is me. Check out the nice perm. I'm still a fan. So this is me when I'm 14. Okay, I have always loved the performing arts, always loved it. It was always one of my main hobbies when I was at school, always something that I really loved doing. I was cast when I was 13 in a local pantomime as Cinderella. Never expected to get that, never thought I'd be able to play roles like that in my local theatre. And I started to think, oh, maybe I'm quite good at this. My parents, I've always been really lucky. They're incredibly supportive. And they found me a singing teacher. She was basically my music teacher at school. And I went to her and I had some singing lessons. And then a friend of mine got in touch with me and said, "Oh, have you seen this audition? They want a star to be in a West End show, and there's an advert in the paper. There's auditions in Manchester." And I was brought up in Wigan, which, if you drive in, sort of about 40 minutes away from Manchester. And I was like, "Oh no, I haven't seen it." And she said, "Oh well, I'm going." And I just thought you might want to know about it. I'm going because I could definitely be in the West End. And I went downstairs after I got off the phone to her. And I said to my mum and dad, I went, "Oh, such and such a body's going for this audition. Apparently it's in the local paper." And I was just talking to them about it. And my dad sat there in quite a wise way, as my dad does, and said, "Why aren't you going?" I just went, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't. How do I get to Manchester? I don't know what it's about. I don't know what I'd sing." I made all of these excuses why I couldn't do it. I put a lid on my own jar. And my dad went, "When is it? Get the paper." And I got the paper, and Dad looked at it. And my dad was a prison officer. He worked shifts. And he went, "I'm off that day. I can take you." And he did. So I then went to a theatre in Manchester. I'd never done anything on this scale before at all. And when I got there, there's all these girls outside in leg warmers and leotards. And I'm not dressed like that at all, because we were just told we had to come and sing, not do a full-on dance routine. And they were queued right round this theatre. And we got there and I went to Dad, "Oh, Dad, there's no point." And he went, "What?" And I went, "Well, look at all those people." I said, "I can guarantee they've all been in Annie. They'll all have been in Oliver. When it's been in Manchester professional shows." I went, "I've not done anything like that. They're going to be way better than me." And my dad just went, "Oh, come on, Zoe, get a grip. Get in that line." And I did. And he was right. And I went in, and all I had to do was sing Happy Birthday. 10 of us went up on stage at a time. I had to sing Happy Birthday. And then when I was leaving the stage, I had to sit back down for 10 minutes, and then you left again. And I sat back down, went, "Stop, did it, get ready to go." And then they called my name and they asked me to go back up on stage. And they hadn't asked anybody else to do this. And then they asked me to sing something else. And then they told me I could go. And then they took a photograph of me, actually. And then we were at home 2 or 3 days later, and we got a phone call, and Dad answered the phone, and they asked me to go to Birmingham 2 weeks later for the final auditions. They had auditioned about 3,000 girls of my age all over the country, and they wanted me to go to the finals, which I went to. There were 10 of us. And I didn't get it. And I thought, "Oh, that's it. I'm not good enough." I didn't realise that being the final 10 from about 3,000 was pretty impressive. At that time, I just went, "Oh, I'm not good enough. That's it." So I carried on doing my amateur things, and I carried on loving the performing arts, but never kind of taking it really, really seriously until it came to sixth form, and I chose to do drama as one of my A-levels. And I was singing more and more and acting more and more, and I really loved it. And I just sang all the time. I was really annoying. And so when it got to university, what was I going to do? I decided I wanted to go to university before drama school. So I went to Warwick University. I did a degree in theatre studies and dramatic arts, had a great time. Did loads of theatre while I was there, went to the Edinburgh Fringe and was in shows at the Edinburgh Fringe, and was a vocal singing director for a show at the Edinburgh Fringe. All through my time at university, loved it. Singing, acting, all the time. And then it came to my final year of university, and me going, "Oh, what am I actually going to do when university ends?" And again, sat down with Mum and Dad and had a chat. And Dad went, "Well, what about drama school? And what about singing?" And I went, "Oh, there's no point doing that. It'll cost us a fortune. We certainly haven't got that sort of money for me to do anything like that. And look at all those people. There's so many people out there. I'm not as good as the people that I watch in shows. I just couldn't do it." And Dad sat there and stared at me and went, "Get a grip, Zoe. You'll never know if you don't try." And I went and I auditioned for Mount View Academy of Theatre Arts, and I got in on their postgraduate course. So it was just a 1-year course that I got into. Had an amazing time. While I was there, the head of musical theatre was asked to select some people to go and audition for Les Miserables. Now, this was a thing. Since I was 12, I had been listening to Les Miserables pretty much all the time. It was the biggest dream I could ever have. Was that one day I'd be on stage and be able to sing some of the stuff from Les Miserables. I just loved it. Was very passionate about it as a show, thought it was great. And the head of musical theatre picked me as one of the people to go and audition. I hadn't even left drama school then. And in I went to the casting directors and I sang a song and they went, "Thank you very much." And that was it. And I heard nothing. And then I left drama school. And 3 more times I auditioned for Les Miserables. 3 more times, be it 6 months apart, be it 12 months apart. I auditioned for Les Miserables. I went in, I sang a song. They went, "Thank you very much." And I left. So I was doing some other work. I was getting work as an actor and a singer, but I was beginning to think that my Les Mis big dream was never, ever going to happen. And, you know, I suppose that would have been okay, but I worked harder. There were some notes that I thought I could sing those notes better. So I sang them more and I worked on them more. And I reflected on those previous auditions I'd had and what did I do and what did I say and what did I wear and all of the things. And I really reflected and tried to better myself and kept working and working. And then they called again. It was, "Oh, here we go. I'm going to go into Les Miserables. They're going to say no. Off we go." I went in. I sang my song. They asked me a question about myself and my life. And I then got into a chat with them. And then they went, "Thank you very much." And I left. And I thought that was it. Oh, they were just being nice. They've seen me for the last however many times. They were just being nice, asking me a question. And then later that day, my agent phoned me and went, "Zoe, Les Miserables want to see you again. The music's going to arrive in the post. You need to learn all of the harmony lines. You need to be able to go in and sing it off the script and be able to know what all the harmony lines are." Okay, right. Amazing. So then I was running around trying to find people who could help me do this and get a little keyboard out of a cupboard and find a friend who was decent at playing the piano, because I'm really not, who could help me learn these things that I had to learn. So the music arrived. I did all this work. I carried on. I'd learnt those harmonies, the top line, the middle line, the tune, the bottom, all of it. Worked really hard. Went in. They asked me to sing some stuff. "Thank you very much." Oh. So all of that hard work, and that was it. Also, I thought, because what was I doing? I was putting a lid on my own jar. And I was saying, "I'm not good enough. I'm never going to do that." And then the phone rang again. And it was my agent again. "Zoe, Les Mis want to see you at the final workshop audition." Now, this was a big deal. You had to go, you spent part of the day with them, you acted out scenes, you sang bits on your own, you sang one harmony line with some people, then they get you to sing another harmony line with another person. And I knew this from friends who'd auditioned before. I was absolutely terrified. And again, that little voice in my head was going, "Why are you even bothering going? There's people better than you. You're not going to get it. Why are you bothering?" And I had to kind of get rid of that voice and work hard and keep singing those notes and keep trying and keep working. On the day of the final auditions, the workshops, I walked into a room where I saw a load of girls who all had brown hair, who were all under about 5'3" in height. and all looked a tiny bit like me. They were probably a bit prettier, or that's what I thought at the time, because that's the little voices in your head. And I walked in and I looked at them and I went, I've seen her. I've seen her in a show. Oh, I trained at the same time as her. She's amazing. Oh, I've been up against her in an audition before. I know how good she is. I walked in, I registered at the desk, and I went straight to the toilet. And I sat there going, I can't do it. I'm not going to get it. It's ridiculous. Why am I trying? This is horrendous. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be rubbish. And I looked in the mirror, and I gave myself a little bit of a talking to. And my dad's voice came into my head. And my dad just went, get a grip, Zoe. You'll never know if you don't try and if you don't go for it and get out there and do your best. So I did. And I went into the workshop and I sang my little heart out and I acted my little socks off as best as I could. And they went, thank you. And I went home again. And a week later, I thought it was all over. But a week later, when they'd finished all their auditions, the phone rang. And my agent said, Zoe, Les Mis have offered you a part. And I couldn't stop crying. And I couldn't wait to tell my dad. And here is a picture of me with the other girls in the ensemble backstage. It was then at the Palace Theatre in London. And that's me at the front in the middle in Les Miserables. Well, that's not me in it. That would be weird. And that's us backstage in Les Miserables. I'd done it. I hadn't let anybody else stop me. I'd worked hard. I'd tried. I'd been persistent. And I got the dream I had always wanted. And I know how lucky I am that happened to me. But I also know how hard I worked. If you don't want to take my word for how hard work and persistent pays off, thinking about our skills for success at school and how being persistent is important to us. You know, if you're finding something difficult at school, you keep trying, you keep asking those quality questions of your teachers so that you can get better. That's what we do. And that's why the Skills for Success program is there. But if you don't take my word for it and you don't want to think about skills for success right now, then have a listen to this guy.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
So here's just a few more examples for you to have a look at people who've maybe been turned down for things, people who've been told no, people who have been persistent. And so to finish off today, I just want to bring you back to my little annoying friend, the flea, who had a lid put on their jar, who was told after 3 days, you're never going to jump any higher than that. They don't have a choice. We do. Don't let anyone ever put a lid on your jar. Keep trying, keep working hard. Take care. I hope you have a nice day.